She couldn't stand it.
Well, it's really well designed.
Yeah.
She's got a really great space. She has a suite. It's very comfortable. It's decorated how she
So
likes
when
it.
I was reviewing the
She's only responsible for breakfast,
I saw
lunch and dinner.
church.
The menu, there's two different, she likes the soup. They serve soup every lunch. She has a choice and she likes the food. She has a choice for dinner. She likes dinner. There's a hairdresser comes every Thursday, picks her up, takes her to her salon, does her hair, takes her back. She's really cool. They've got activities every day. They've got live music most nights. She likes it. She's got
Is she
friends there.
an outgoing personality? I mean,
Oh,
she-
yeah.
Yeah, so she can make
Or
friends.
again,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would
Yeah.
use-
So we went there, and I knew it was close to the end of lunch, and she may still be at lunch when we got there. We called her room to get in. She's not answering, so we're stuck, because they can come and go as they please, but they have to buzz in.
Edmonds comes up.
And then someone saw us and came, and said, "Who are you looking for?" I said, Millie Savage. Well, she's still in lunch, but come on in. So I went in, walked around the corner, and there she is holding court with like 4 people, talking to her and everything. And so, yeah, it was good to see that she's happy, but it was a nice facility.
Good, right.
Yeah, very comfortable.
With Prince Edward Island.
Yes.
Evening.
Big beaver. Just the turnaround.
You could walk.
5 minutes.
You could walk.
Yes.
You're right.
I didn't answer. I know, I had one job, right? I had one job.
Hey, how early it starts, how late it goes.
Yeah, he doesn't check in with me nearly.
Okay, folks, I think we're ready to get started. Good evening and welcome to the July 14th regular meeting of the Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city attorney's office and the city's planning, actually, we don't have planning.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. If you wish to address the planning commission, please come forward and recognize and provide your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the planning commission and not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, BlackBerries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting, please either be placed in silent mode or be turned off. Mrs. Zardicki, the roll call, please.
Mr. Afanidian?
Here.
Ms. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krant?
Here.
Ms. Koopa?
Here.
Mr. Zanzika? Mr. Stratt?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Here. We did get I got an email, I think you were copied, but
Yes.
Sanzika's at a drain commissioners conference up at Mackinac, so not able to be here. Okay, next one is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve or amend the agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve then.
Thank you, Mr. Krant. And seconded by Mr. Stratt.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Afanidian?
The agenda item number 3 is the minutes of the June 23rd, 2015 Planning Commission meeting. Is there a motion to approve or amend? Mr. Tagle? And seconded by Ms. Koopa?
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Afanidian? Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
The agenda item number 4 is public comment. This is reserved for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll move on to item number 5, a preliminary site plan review, file number SP1007, proposed Evangel Baptist Church of Troy auditorium, south of Maple, west of DeQuinder, at 2900 Lovington, section 36, currently zoned RT, one family attached residential, and IB, Integrated Industrial and Business Districts. Who's going to start that off?
I'll start that off and
Thank you.
finish it.
Okay, good.
So as you indicated, Mr. Chairman, this is an existing church located at 2900 Lovington. Lovington is located west of DeQuinder, north of 14 Mile, in section 36 in Troy. The church is proposing an addition, a 5,360 square foot addition, which is primarily comprised of sanctuary and assembly space. It's going to be located on this side, on the south side of the building, which also happens to be zoned integrated industrial and business. The northern portion is RT, two-family residential, but the south portion is IB, and it's surrounded on three sides by IB, which stands for Integrated Industrial and Business District. The other improvements include reconfiguring and increasing the parking lot, adding new landscaping, and providing stormwater management. The applicant was before Planning Commission on June 9th of this year, and the application was postponed to provide the applicant with opportunity to address some of the shortcomings that were identified in the report and by the Planning Commission at the meeting. So they're back before us this evening. I'm not gonna go through the entire report. I'm just gonna really hit on the shortcomings that and they've addressed all of them with some exceptions. One of the requirements that the Planning Commission had was to work with the engineering department regarding stormwater and incorporate best management practices. They did revise the stormwater detention here in this corner of the site. It's more visually appealing, but it does not appear to incorporate any best management practices. And they also did not provide stormwater calculations to determine if the pond is sized accordingly. And this is an issue that we could certainly work with them during final to incorporate more best management practices and verify that there's enough capacity in there to handle the additional impervious surface on the site. The applicant was asked to provide a 5-foot wide sidewalk along Lovington or seek a sidewalk waiver. The site plan does not show that 5-foot wide sidewalk. Unless they get a waiver, it's actually required. So we recommend that they actually provide the sidewalk unless they get a waiver. The applicant did provide a revised landscape plan, but it's not sealed. So we would require that prior to final, that the landscape plan that they submit be sealed. So to summarize, we recommend preliminary site plan approval for the addition and the other improvements to the site with some conditions, and those are: 1, submit required stormwater calcs and incorporate stormwater best management practices where possible. 2, incorporate alternative vegetation in the detention pond. 3, add a 5-foot wide sidewalk along Lovington or seek a sidewalk waiver. And 4th and finally, submit a landscape plan sealed by a licensed landscape architect. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Planning Director?
What is the best practices for that? In summary, I mean, I don't have to go into a lot of detail, but what are best practices, and what does that entail when that term is used to apply to that situation with the?
There's really a lot of potential different options available to them. If you look at the note there, they're proposing that they're proposing some plant species. Actually, I'll show you the landscape plan. They are proposing some plant species here, but you notice these dots represents turf grass.
Oh, I see. Now I see. Okay.
That's a simple one. Is instead of turf grass, you could do some more creative things with plant material, and they help to cleanse the water, and that's just one. You can reduce piping by sheet flowing, and you can use bioswales and rain gardens. There's all kinds of different. I wouldn't want to limit the applicant by making suggestions, but there are options available to them to be more creative in how they apply stormwater detention.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Mr. Tego.
Brett, what would happen if you found out that that area that's identified for retention is too small, and it would start to change a little bit of the configuration? More parking would have to be added down along the south property line. I mean, you only have one additional car over what's required that something that administratively would be acceptable to approve, or would it have to come back in front of us? Because
we-
it's a change in the site plan.
We would, if, our assumption is our assumption is, that's why we kind of recommend approval, is that it's gonna be appropriately sized, but to your point, if it needed to be expanded, and we did have to add to the south, we'd come back, because we consider that to be more impervious surface, and it would be an expansion of the footprint of the imperviousness. Unless the planning commission stipulated in the condition that, you know, you let them, you know, up to so many spaces do that administratively, you know, whatever you came up with. But generally speaking, if we would consider an expansion that wasn't otherwise considered this evening to be significant, we come back.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? That's right at the entrance to their property, too.
It is.
And it's probably adequately sized, because it's always been there, right? Has it always been there, or has it been moved? I think it's,
I don't know if it's, I've been there a couple times, and I don't recall noticing if it's,
yeah.
what the
Well,
function is
we
there.
could ask the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no other question from the planning commission. Well, is the applicant, please come forward, and you have to speak in that microphone back there.
Hi, my name is Saber Kassab. I'm the member of Evangel Baptist Church of Troy. And you were mentioning, has it been existing? Is that existing in as
Yes.
No, it hasn't. It's been grass all along. And we were mentioning, actually Brent was mentioning, or one of you was mentioning if it's big enough. And we don't have any problem. Have our engineer directly communicate with your engineer here to see what we can do to fix problems like that. And as far as adding, that's all, you know, it's grassy now and it's going to be grassy later. And adding a little bit shrubs here and there is not, I don't think it's much of a big deal there. And as far as sidewalk, actually, there is no sidewalk anywhere on the street, the whole street. So you don't have a beginning or the end. It's going to take you nowhere, actually, on the sidewalk. In order to go a sidewalk, you got to walk through the grass, get on the sidewalk, go about maybe 100 feet, and come on the grass again, go on the street. So it really doesn't make, it doesn't serve any purpose at all.
Notice here, if I could just back
Sure.
your point up.
Sure.
So what he's saying is there's no sidewalk here, there's no sidewalk here, so it's.
But it is a neighborhood node.
Well, it's not zone neighborhood node. I'm just basically
Right.
backing you up that.
Right.
Helping you illustrate your.
Yep.
So to get a waiver, they have to go to the ZBA then?
Traffic committee.
Traffic, okay.
Actually, I called the traffic committee. They say, you know, to get to the meeting here and see what they say, and then come back to us. So,
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
A
Mr.
question
Cagle.
For Mr. Savana, was this property developed before there were stormwater management requirements as far as retention?
Oh, boy, it's been here a long time.
Because I'm just wondering, where is the stormwater going now?
There's
Is it just draining, sheet flowing into the grassy areas?
I don't know. I can tell you that there's floodplain here, and that may be the case. This church, do you know when the church was constructed?
oh gosh, it's been
Been a long time.
long, at least in the 50s, maybe 40s, 50s, and it never had,
You're probably correct. That
Yeah.
was long before.
and it never had drains in the parking lot or anywhere actually. Yeah, for some reason or another, the water were disappearing. So, until the city actually put the new storm drains, and that helped a lot actually. Yeah.
There could be a lot of questions about that stormwater, like where is the water going now? And if they retain it, how do they get it to the detention pond, which is up in the corner of the property? If the site, or if the impervious area is flowing in different directions.
You mind if I answer that, Brent? Okay. Actually, okay, the engineer actually is working on that, so we want to make sure everything flows down, okay? Plus, we have storm drains now, a lot of storm drains where he's, with the topo survey type of thing, he's kind of sloping everything down, make sure that no water stays anywhere.
Okay, so I'm sorry, are you adding storm drainage?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Now, are you adding catch basins?
Yes,
Okay, yep, I see them.
yep.
All right, thank you.
So actually, the storage is just for extra, maybe extra rain, extra stuff, and, yeah. You see those dots, right? Those are the storm drains, yeah, right there.
Okay, is there any other questions from the commission for the applicant? This is not a public hearing, however. The planning commission typically does take comments. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to comment on this application? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the table, to the planning commission for either a resolution or Mr. Hudson.
Let me offer a resolution. Be it resolved that the preliminary site plan approval pursuant to Article 8 of the zoning ordinance as requested for the proposed Evangel Baptist Church of Troy Auditorium located south of Maple, west of DeQuinder, 2900 Lovington, Section 36 within the RT, which is one family attached residential, and the IB Integrated Industrial and Business Districts be granted, subject to the applicant addressing the following items at final site plan review. 1, submit required stormwater calculations and incorporate stormwater best management practices where possible. 2, incorporate alternative vegetation in the detention pond. 3, add a 5-foot sidewalk along Lovington or seek a sidewalk waiver. 4, submit a landscape plan sealed by a licensed landscape architect.
Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Appahidian? Any further discussion on the motion? If not, the roll call, please.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Appahidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes. Motion approved.
Thank you so much, appreciate it, thanks.
Next agenda is number 6, which is a special use request and preliminary site plan review. This is a public hearing, special use, file number SU 414, proposed Speedway service station, southeast corner of Big Beaver and John R. at 2980 John R. Section 25, currently zoned GB General Business District, controlled by consent adjustment. Mr. Sabada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an existing aerial showing what's at 2980 John R. now. It's this existing speedway station, as you indicated. And the applicant's proposing to make a number of changes to the speedway station. They include relocation of the fuel pumps and canopy, relocation of the dumpster and rescreening of the trash enclosure, a new recycle storage building adjacent to the new trash enclosure screening, and reconfiguring the parking and adding 2 on-site parking spaces. The site is 1.1 acres in area. This existing fuel station is 2,300 square feet in size. I would note that site access, which is 1 curb cut on Big Beaver and 1 curb cut on John R., is going to remain the same. So, as you indicated, Mr. Chairman, the site is controlled by consent judgment. Is there anybody who doesn't know what a consent judgment is? Okay.
Well, maybe for the audience, you can go ahead and explain.
I can explain it in layman's terms, or Mr. Monsi can explain it more
That's
technically.
even better.
How about I defer to Mr. Monsi, he can explain it.
Well, consent judgment is a court order that authorizes deviations from the zoning ordinance. State Zoning Enabling Act does allow court orders to be used by city councils and township boards sometimes to allow something that would not otherwise be allowed by the zoning ordinance itself.
And is it fair to say that in most cases it's because it's a result of litigation?
Yes, it's usually the result of litigation, although sometimes there's what's known as a friendly lawsuit where they kind of agree to have a lawsuit just to do a consent judgment.
That would never happen here.
No.
Never here. So, what the consent judgment was entered into in 1988, and it does require that the site be developed in accordance with the Highway Service District zoning regulations, which theoretically no longer exist. But because they're attached to part of the consent judgment, we have to adhere to them as per the consent judgment. So it does require that they seek special use approval for anything that's done in the HS district, and this site never received special use approval at any time. So that's why they're before us. Even though it's an existing station, they're making revisions, and it's still gonna be a station. They're required by consent judgment to go through special use approval. So it was a long-winded explanation of why we're here this evening with the special use for an existing station. So the standards for setback standards for canopies and pump islands and canopy edges in the HS district were all met with this revised layout. During the site plan, I put the copy of the consent judgment in here so you could, in case anyone had insomnia at any time over the weekend, you could pull that out and you'd have no problems falling asleep. So, okay, there we go. So the applicant here's the proposed building here, and this is the canopy. They're proposing, the report says 7 spaces in front of the building. They're actually proposing 8 spaces here in front of the building. And they're also adding 10 spaces along Big Beaver and a number of spaces scattered over here and over here. So there's these 10 spaces though, if you look at how this is gonna work, most people that are gonna, with some exceptions, a lot of people that shop in the convenience store are gonna be getting gas and then walking to the convenience store. There will be some people who are there to buy milk or cigarettes or whatever that park here and walk in. There's these 10 spaces over here, we believe are kind of in no man's land, because the person's gonna come in and who does choose to park here, gonna park here, and they're gonna have to walk, compete, and be very cognizant of turning movements here, especially people coming off Big Beaver, then walk under the canopy between cars, and then have to compete with cars here, and then cars backing up, and it's a kind of somewhat tenuous journey through the parking lot for spaces that we don't believe are ever going to be used. 30 spaces for a gas station, I think, is a lot of spaces. So what we recommend is that these spaces go away and become landscaped open space and reduce imperviousness on the site and make the site, these are just needless, we believe. They will still have 20 parking spaces in addition to the spaces at the pump. So that's one of our recommendations. For elevations, they did not submit elevations for the canopy, and in section 628B of the ordinance, the old ordinance, it requires that the canopy structure shall be designed and constructed to be architecturally compatible to the principal building. They're also proposing a new recycled storage building adjacent to the existing building, and it's the building is proposed to be masonry. It's difficult to tell from the revised elevation, the submitted elevations, if they're going to be consistent with the building, and we'd like to verify that administratively during final site plan review. Given that the fact that it's an existing gas station today, given its location at a busy intersection of 2 major mile roads, and there's going to be really no change in impact, we believe that this item should not necessarily have to go back to Planning Commission to verify those 2 items. So that's going to be one of our recommendations.
Can you point out the recycle storage, the additional recycle storage building? Is that to the left of the?
Here.
Yeah, okay.
In terms of lighting, the site lighting includes 24 under canopy lights and 5 pole-mounted lights, and lighting levels are exceeded as per related to our photometric requirements. They exceed the maximum of 1 foot candle. That's exceeded along the east property line. The maximum 20-foot candles requirement is exceeded in a number of places, and the pole height was not indicated on the site plan. The fixtures are compliant, but what we'd like to do is have them resubmit the lighting and the photometric plan that's compliant prior to final site plan approval. It's just a matter of kind of tweaking the numbers and making some modifications to the site plan. That can be done relatively easily. We do find that the site plan, other than the site issues I mentioned, the application does meet all the special use standards in the ordinance. So to summarize, we find that the application meets all required special use standards. We recommend that the Planning Commission grant special use approval and a preliminary site plan approval, provided that the applicant resubmit the following items during final site plan approval, and there are 4. 1 is remove the 10 spaces adjacent to Big Beaver Road, just to clarify, it's these 10 spaces here. 2, submit canopy elevations that are architecturally compatible to the principal building. 3, confirm that the masonry of the new building matches the existing masonry of the main building. And 4, resubmit lighting and photometric plan that's compliant with section 1305 of the zoning ordinance. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the planning director? I just had one question. Where is the dumpster now again? Has it been shown, is it shown on the plan there? Sure it is, you can see it.
It's here.
Oh, it's part of,
Yeah.
part of that storage building?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, then I'm okay. Is the applicant here, please? Would you please go to the microphone and state your name?
Mike Engman, I'm a Speedway representative. As far as the conditions that were outlined here by Mr. Sabadan, removing the 10 spaces along Big Beaver Road would not be a problem. The only thing I would ask, the curb line and everything there is existing, and I thought I heard you mention something about kind of rerouting the curb and making that paved area that's there existing now part of the yard or green belt area, and would just request that if we were to just leave the existing curb as it is, but not stripe those 10 parking spots.
That doesn't achieve the objective, I don't think. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then the canopy elevations, we can submit canopy elevations with the final site plan. The masonry construction of the trash enclosure and recycle building, I think the note on the plans actually calls for a split face block, but it would be no problem to match the existing facade of the building. And then as far as the the lighting and photometric plan, we can work with our vendor to resubmit a revised plan. I tried to get a copy of the ordinance off the website earlier today to review, but for whatever reason the link didn't work, so I wasn't able to review what the lighting output requirements were. But it sounds like is, just to kind of clarify, 20-foot candles at any one spot is the maximum,
Yes.
so like under the canopy.
Lower it down.
Okay. I know Speedway's preference is to maintain under the canopy at least between 25 and 30-foot candles, just for safety purposes. The requirement as far as the light leaving the site should be no problem to comply with that, but that would be my only comment on the lighting under the canopy.
Yeah.
Is that for?
What I can do then, if you're having problems with their link, is I can scan that language and just email it
Okay.
to you.
Okay.
We can have dialogue and make sure that, because I don't have the provisions memorized. We can
Okay.
talk and help you get to the compliance.
Okay. Other than that, I think that's.
Okay. Questions for the applicant, Mr. Krant?
Yeah, you say you didn't want to add any green space. In other words, just leave it as what we see now on this overhead. What is the reason? Is there a traffic reason for that, or what's the logic?
Well, as far as it's all existing pavement now, and it would provide a little bit more space for traffic to circulate, in and around the canopy. That would really be the only reason leave it paved as it is now.
Well, if you were gonna have those parking spots there, your maneuverability would be greatly reduced from those 19-foot depths anyway. I would, I'm not saying utilize that whole 19-foot that would have been parking, but I would think it would be smart to have a little more green space, only because even on the, it's not on this slide, but if you can go to the overhead photo, that's it, okay. You see how on the upper right, you see how the grass comes in that far in? It would be,
Mhm.
it would be nice to have something, not necessarily all the way into that, but something, maybe half of that,
Okay.
just to add more green space. And likewise, along John R., it looks pretty ratty right now, but if that was enhanced somehow, again, what we're trying to achieve here is good visual curb appeal,
Okay.
to make the place look really great.
Mhm.
And I think adding additional green elements would help, especially a gas station. I mean, a gas station is pretty industrial in itself. You've got fumes, you've got trucks moving in and out to fill up your big tanks, and it's kind of heavy. If we can soften that more so, it leads to a better appeal to people driving by. I would consider that, I would put that in our resolution.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Now, when you say along John R., adding green space as well, I don't think it'd probably be a problem to add the green space along, where the parking spaces are there. I'm not sure. I'd have to check the spacing as far as between, where the canopy ends and how much space is there between that existing curb line now, just to make sure that.
Yeah, what you have there is probably sufficient
Okay.
for space. It just looks pretty brown. I actually didn't visit the site recently, so I can't really say what it looks like today, but it should be enhanced again. As opposed to, no need to make it wider.
Oh,
just-
okay. I
Just
see.
enhance the appearance of it.
Well, I'm not really in favor of just eliminating the striping for the parking and then just leaving the blacktop and the existing curb there. That's really not enhancing the,
I'm talking about John R.
He's talking, yeah, just so we're on the same page, I think what Mr. Krant was indicating is this can remain this depth but be enhanced. And this green area can
Increase in depth.
increase in depth and be enhanced. Correct.
and where are the
To line
10
up closer
10
to what's
spaces
over
that
here.
they're gonna take out?
Yeah, the 10 spaces would be along Big Beaver. So you've got maneuverability there to do it.
Okay,
That's what I'm suggesting. And I'm not gonna give a dimension. I'm gonna leave it up to staff to work out something that's sensible for the situation. But I would like to see a wider green belt to mirror the other side, the east part, but not as fully, because that's you see it cuts on an angle there, and I can understand why, because you've got looks like that's where they fill the tanks, on that upper right-hand corner where the yellow striping is.
Correct, yep. And
So-
the tanks would be replaced as part of the project, so the tanks would actually slide to the, trying to think directionally.
I know,
which
it's
would
upside
be-
down backwards.
Yeah, it would be to the south, I think, right?
Okay.
So the tanks would actually be, towards the building, I guess, to put it more simply.
All right.
We'll be putting new underground storage tanks in, so just, yeah.
All right.
any other concerns or comments from the planning commission? If not, this is not a public hearing, but if there are any members of the audience who want to comment on this, they certainly want to do so at this time.
Mr. Atkins? It actually is a public hearing.
Oh, it is, I'm sorry. So we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wants to speak on that? If not, we'll bring it back to the, close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I just wanted to look at my printed plans because sometimes it's harder to read on the
Right.
screen. But they do propose so right now, there are 4 trees here that they're
Oh, okay.
proposing that remain there. So any enhancement, any landscaping enhancements in addition to those trees would have to be designed to complement those trees.
Right.
I think we are adding a total of 7 trees. I think most of them are along Big Beaver Road. I think 6, and then there's a 7th one, I believe, in the, what would be the southwest corner of the site, I think, that we're adding.
There's actually 4 proposed new trees along Big Beaver and 3 new ones along John Rock.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Stratton.
You know, actually, what you're doing is you're adding more pumps, aren't you?
It'd be the same amount of pumps.
So therefore, we can't do anything on the John R. because you're limited as far as the access on John R. It bypass on John R., so you really can't do much as far as increasing that anyway. Is that correct?
Increasing the greenbelt area?
The greenbelt area, right.
Yeah, because the new canopy that we'd be putting up is wider, but the depth of it, it's not as
Closer
deep
to
as-
John R.
Yeah, it's like,
Correct, yeah.
I'm looking at your plan here, and I can see where you're talking about. You actually have 6 pumps, as
Yep,
I see it
yep.
right now, that you've added, or not added, but that's how many you're ending up with.
It'd be 6 that we end up with, and there's 6 currently at the site too.
Oh, is that right? You're not adding anymore?
Not adding any more, just kind of reconfiguring the layout. The way it's laid out now, there's 2 rows of 3 dispensers.
Oh, I see, okay. Okay, so you did expand them.
The canopy would be, wider and skinnier, I guess, for,
No problem.
and the reason we do that is just provides better circulation to the site that, with that wider, just 1 row of dispensers, it's a lot easier to get in and out of the dispenser spaces.
Right, but that being said, that being wider between, therefore, the space that we're talking about,
Right.
that you landscape, really is not that necessary that you have that much space, because you do have plenty of circulation space because of the width of the spaces between the pumps. So really what Tom was talking about, Mr. Trent talked about, I think is legit, and I agree with him. I would almost think that we should have all of that space landscaped.
And just to clear, which space, you're talking along John R. or that space?
Right
Okay,
there.
I see.
Right there. Granted, I'd leave the curb cut where you got it, but if I had my druthers, I'd move the curb cut over further too. But, that not being said, in other words, move it over further so that we'd have additional landscaping. But I think that's really going a little bit too far.
Is there any vehicle service work done at this station?
No, it's just a gas station convenience store.
and just a reminder, the planning commission, this is a special use application, and you have the authority to can make conditions related on the site plan matter.
That's true. Well, I'd certainly like to see at least half of those parking spaces, the depth of them be added to Greenbelt.
I agree.
Well, whoever makes the resolution should clarify the exact depth of this.
Okay. You don't want to be left on the hook. I don't blame you. Yeah, we're the body, I understand, we're the body that makes that determination.
So what was the length of a standard parking spot? You
Usually
mentioned?
19 feet, isn't it? We'll call it 9.5 foot, I'll put that in the resolution if.
I would, it's your resolution.
Yes, I'll put in the
Minimum,
resolution.
so that you can
Minimum
exceed.
9.5 feet. Got it.
Why not make it 10? Do I hear 10?
It's your resolution.
Yeah.
Reasonable special conditions. Okay, Mr. Grant, are you ready to provide a resolution?
Yeah, just as soon as I bring up that page, I just scanning through a bunch of stuff and I passed up the page I was.
I have the resolution.
Yep, I got it. It's coming. One more is for my poor eyesight. Okay. Resolved that special use approval and preliminary site plan approval for the proposed improvements to the Speedway service station located at the southeast corner of Big Beaver and John R., 2980 John R., Section 25, currently zoned GB General Business District, controlled by consent judgment, be granted subject to the applicant resubmitting the following items as part of the final site plan review. Remove the 10 spaces adjacent to Big Beaver and provide an additional 10 feet of landscaping from the north, on the north side.
Minimal 10 feet.
Minimum 10 feet, yes, minimum 10 feet to the existing green space along Big Beaver. 2, submit canopy elevations that are architecturally compatible with the principal building. 3, confirm that the masonry of the new building matches existing masonry of the building. 4, resubmit lighting and photometric plan that is compliant with section 13.05.
Is there support? Mr. Tagle? Further discussion of the resolution? Not the roll call, Mrs. Secretary.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Abahidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is number 7, public comment for any items that are on the current agenda. Seeing no one that wants to speak on that, we'll move on to number 8, planning commission comment. Let's begin tonight with Mr. Tagle.
Well, Mr. Stratt, since this is your last meeting with us, I want to tell you I appreciated your input over the years. I'm a little bit upset that you're leaving me all alone on this committee now.
Sole architect.
But I wish you a lot of luck in your new
Thank you.
adventure. And, yeah, stop in and see us sometime.
Yes.
Thank you. I'll be at the next meeting.
I'm on the other side of the table, so to speak.
That's true. Mr. Craig.
You've done an incredible job. I really appreciate your expertise because it's the kind of, it's right up your alley. It's your profession, and having that professional opinion and experience and knowledge was incredibly valuable to this group. So thank you ever so much, Tom.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment.
Mr. Abahidian.
It was a pleasure working with you the short few months that I've been here. It was a great experience, and I wish you luck, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Ms. Cruz.
I just want to thank Mr. Stratt for being so warm and welcoming when I was the new girl, and for being supportive of my commentary and my opinions. I appreciate it. I'll be sorry to see you go. I don't know who I'm going to be able to sit next to and like elbow and scare with my hands.
Right.
You'll find that you miss it.
Right. I will.
But thank
Very
you.
good. Well, thank you. Very nice.
Let's reserve time for the end. Ms. Cooper.
Thank you very much for your service to the city, many years of service.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Hudson.
Tom, it's been a great adventure with you on the planning commission. I have enjoyed your sharp comments and forgetting to turn your PDA off at every other meeting.
I share light comments. We will definitely miss you, and I think the fact that you've served on this commission for over 13 years, and at least 1 or 2 mayors, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
So
Humor.
that is not insignificant, and I thank you.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
now
it.
your turn.
My turn.
Yes, your turn.
Oh, boy.
You're still
Well,
a
I can only say that it's been really a real pleasure to serve on the Planning Commission. I really enjoyed working with the past as well as the present administration, as well as members on the Planning Commission. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of continuation of the efforts as it relates to stormwater management that I've been trying to push a lot. But other than that, I really I want to express, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my Tuesday nights. And I'm gonna really miss the money. It's gonna be a real.
The austerity
Yeah.
program is coming, isn't it?
Right, making $2 an hour is really something else, but, no, I really thank you very much. I appreciate all the comments that were made, and hopefully, as I mentioned in my letter, that I contributed something back to the city that I lived in, so I really enjoyed it. And I thank everyone for the comments.
Let's go and continue on, Mr. Sabato.
We've been here you were on the commission around the same time I was hired here, so we got a long history. We spent a lot of hours together in this room and in that other room.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. I've enjoyed working with you. I'm looking forward to working with you on the other side, because wait till you see this project next meeting. It's pretty cool, and I like working with Tom as an applicant. It's a lot of fun, and hopefully he brings more designs, because he's creativity. He's always preaching creativity, and he brings a lot to the table as an applicant. So what we lose him as a planning commissioner, but we gain him as a potential applicant. So that's cool. Now talking about the 28th,
Yes.
busy agenda.
Yes.
Busy agenda, so strap it on for the 28th, because we're gonna be here a while. So
Yes.
we're gonna talk about the wetlands ordinance. We've got some exciting projects that we're gonna talk about, so it'll be a good meeting, including Mr. Stratt. We get to see Mr. Stratt again, so it's gonna be probably a potentially lengthy meeting, but a fun,
Yes.
but a very fun meeting, and we got some great projects.
Brent shared the draft agenda with me, and I haven't seen an agenda like that in many years. Mr. Matzek.
Well, first, I'd like to introduce our newest attorney, Nicole McMillan. Also is Nikki, and I think maybe she should cover the 28th. There you go.
Dies like yours.
And also just to thank Mr. Stratt for his years of service, for as long as I remember being the representative for the city attorney's office. Mr. Stratt's always been here.
Hey, no, that old, okay.
And I'm certainly gonna miss you a lot, and I wish you well. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that wraps it up. So if there's no further comments, we are adjourned.
Great.
We have a fundraiser on Sunday for the victims of the Charlestown shooting at Granite City, both Troy and Northville. 20% of proceeds all day, so you can go anytime you want. 20% of the proceeds will be donated to the Victims Fund for Charlestown. So this is what Troy is doing. And we have a piece of artwork that we're creating, so if you have any young grandchildren or children that you would like to bring to participate in that. And then we have a candlelight vigil on the steps of City Hall at 7:30.
Date,
Sunday, July 19th. It's this Sunday.
Tom has promised to invite me over to skate on his pond.
On his lake,
His lake.
he's an all-sports lake.
It's an all-sports lake, but
He's excited.
he's promised the hockey rink out there, so.
You know you're gonna have to share that with his grandchildren.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to invite all of you south.